Welcome back, friends. In this series of continuous education about autism, in this video what we are going to do is we are going to understand one of the major symptoms of autism which we have seen in most of the cases is that the child is constantly flapping his hand. We'll try to understand why does a child flap his hand? Why is this repetitive symptom seen in most of the child? To understand this, we have to understand the basic senses. We have got 7 basic senses, which is the eyes, visual sense, hearing, auditory sense, smell, taste, touch, proprioception, and vestibular senses. These are the normal 7 senses by which we help us to move ahead, to understand things, and to be in this environment. Now we'll take one of the senses which is called as the visual sense. Visual sense is whenever we see any object, that stimulus from that object is taken into a retina. From retina, the nerves they goes into the brain. From brain, they start processing the information, and then the brain gives the information to the motor systems or the motor cortex to execute a function. For example, if I see a flower, my eyes, it sees a flower, the information is taken into the retina. From retina, it goes into the brain. The brain processes this information and gives an instruction to the motor center in the brain, which now instructs my hand to go and to reach to the flower and pick the flower. So this is a normal circular movement by which a stimulus travels and the functions are being executed. What happens in cases of autism is that in autism we find that some of the senses are hypostimulated, that means they are hypofunctioning, and corresponding some of the senses becomes hyperfunctioning, which means they are more stimulated. So we'll talk of visual sense. So when I am seeing an object, say example when I am seeing a flower, so there are 2 types of field, visual field we have. We have a field which is called as a central field, and then we have a field which is called as a peripheral field, which means that when I am looking at an object, when I am holding an object, I am looking at an object, my central field looks at the object, and then at the same time my peripheral field is also there. So if I am looking at an object and someone is passing by, I am focusing on the object, but at the same time my peripheral vision is able to see that somebody is passing by. So when I am looking at you now, I am focusing, my central visual field is focusing on the object, but at the same time the peripheral field, periphery, I can see various things moving around. So what happens in the case of autism is that this central field is hypofunctioning. So correspondingly, the peripheral fields become hyperfunctioning, which means that when I am looking at the object, the central field is hypofunctioning. Mind you, it is not that it is not functioning, it is hypofunctioning, which means that I am looking at the object, I am not able to perceive that object clearly. I am not able to see that object clearly. Whereas when my peripheral field is hyper functioning, lot of peripheral stimulus are coming and attacking my brain. So in case of autism, what is happening is that when my central field is hypo functioning, I am looking at you, but actually I am not making an eye contact with you. So I am looking at, it is hypo functioning, it is not perceived properly. I am not able to sustain the eye contact, I am not making an eye contact with you. And when the peripheral field is hyperstimulated, I am constantly getting distracted towards this peripheral vision. Hypofunctioning, hyperfunctioning. So I am constantly getting distracted. Now to calm my nerves, to calm my stimulus, what I do is I will try to stimulate the peripheral vision, which means that I'll make some movements in the periphery and I'll flap my hands. This flapping of hands calms down my peripheral vision. and it's calm down the hyper functioning of the peripheral vision. So that is why in autism we see this main characteristic symptom, not making an eye contact because the central vision is hypofunctioning, and the child flapping his hand to calm down, to soothe the hyper functioning of the peripheral vision. So friends, in this way we can understand each and every symptom, repetitive symptom what the autism child is expressing. So in next series of videos we are going to take one by one various sensory stimulus and try to see how the autism child, when is hyper functioning, expresses the senses, and when it is hypo functioning, how it expresses the symptom. If you have any queries, if you are finding a particular repetitive symptom in your child and you want to understand why your child is doing this, please write in the comment box and we will be happy to answer your questions. To know more about autism and to have an in-depth study about autism so that you can help your child better, please subscribe to this channel and like this video. Thank you very much.